Welcome back. Now, Cape Town gang violence has cut short yet another child's life. The community of Beacon Valley in Mitchell's Plain in Cape Town is up in arms after a 12-year-old girl was killed in gang-related violence on Tuesday. The grade 7 learner was caught in the crossfire between rival gangs while waiting for transport home from school. The community is calling on police to increase visibility at schools in the area to ensure the safety of learners. Now, community members have threatened to keep their kids out of school until more police are deployed in the areas and surrounding schools. For more on this, we are now joined virtually by the Western Cape MEC of Police Oversight and Community Safety, Reagan, as well as Cape Flats Safety Forum Secretary Lynn Phillips, who will join us via telephone. But Mr. Allen, thank you so much. And Ms. Lynn Phillips, thanks so much for your time as well. Welcome to Morning Live. Mr. Allen, let me start with you. You know, when we talk about gangsterism and violence as a result of gang-related activity on the Cape Flats, this is an age-old story. And, you know, one actually doesn't even know where to start with the questions, hoping for answers, because people have lived under these conditions for so long that it just seems that government is failing them, has been failing them, continues to fail them. How do you characterize what's going on?
Thank you for bringing us into this difficult conversation. I think it's one that we must have. I was one of those young people that grew up in such a community, and I'm so delighted that we are also speaking to Lynn this morning. To give a further context, what we saw happening in the week in Beacon Valley, in our analysis between April and September of last year, there was 404 gang-related murders in our province. Of that 404 gang-related murders, 78 was innocent victims. 78 innocent victims where the investigation concluded that there was no link to a gang. It was a so-called stray bullet, but it was innocent victims. It's highly unacceptable considering that we have an anti-gang unit. We have already in December, again, directly with the National Minister, emphasized the need to ensure that the anti-gang unit is properly capacitated, but we must utilize the law. We must utilize the law to protect communities. And we want, in this particular case, to again, because the perpetrator is appearing in court today, the accused, and we are wanting the entire POCA Act, the Prevention of Organized Crime Act, to actually be utilized. What that essentially means is that Section 4 of that particular piece of legislation, and we have seen pockets of success. There's other high-known and high-flying gangsters that have been brought down, but we want to ensure that anti-gang, together with crime intelligence, ultimately uproot these hideous and sadly unscrupulous people that have been tormenting our community for so long.
Mr. Allen, I'm curious to understand, you know, what this plan entails in its entirety, because it's one thing to say we are going to arrest people. Does that take care of the root cause of this problem? Because as youngsters come onto the scene, they grow up, they are somehow absorbed into these gangs, you know, either by design or default. I don't know how you would characterize it. I suppose it varies from one incident to the next. But communities have to live in these inhumane conditions. They have to live with these, you know, gun battles, running battles that are taking place. As you say, you know, they get caught in the crossfire and innocent people are dying. And if you just look at the statistics, for example, with regard to gang-related killings, the Western Cape with 223 or 78% of the 280 gang-related murders nationally. That is too high, but it's been too high for the longest time, Mr. Allen. So what is the plan?
And that's why I am so keen to always have difficult conversations. I would never want to shy away from it. What we have implemented here in the Western Cape 2019 is our Western Cape Safety Plan. In that particular plan, there's a tiered approach, and violence prevention is as well, because those departments like education, like social development, like cultural affairs and sport all have a role towards safety as well. And that's in our continued effort. On the other hand, where we want to ensure that the South African police service can actually be a professional police service, and one way we can actually see that our policing needs and priorities are taken into account. The current constitutional framework, where a provincial government submits a policing needs and priorities to the national, and those recommendations on a yearly basis, I always see it is hardly taken into account. So we want to see that skewed allocations is addressed. We cannot have an area like Mitchells Plain and like Delft that has a population ratio that is above the provincial average. So there is a number of mechanisms that we have already, interventions we have put in place, but we definitely need the South African Police Service to ultimately play a big role towards fulfilling the mandate, which is to prevent, which is to combat, and which is to investigate crime. And that is a huge cog that is missing, together with departments like services. I can also publicly confirm in our analysis with regards to parolees that were released. In the last 3 months, we saw 113 of those parolees that were released reoffend again. So we definitely, and I'm not wanting to give myself a free pass. The Premier is not wanting to department in the Western Cape a free pass. Hence, each and every department has a role to promote safety, but we definitely need the South African police, which is a national competency, to ultimately fulfill their mandate. It's deeply frustrating considering that these conversations have been happening in areas like Mitchells Plain for decades.
And that's the crux of the matter, isn't it? And I'm glad that you're not trying to, give yourself a free pass on this, because, as you say, this has been going on for decades, and it just seems as though everybody has given up on the people on the Cape Flats. You look at the police, you speak about the police. There are reports that last week 15 guns went missing from the Mitchells Plain police station. So how does that happen? How do gangsters go and steal weapons from a police station that's meant to keep this community safe?
In the briefing that I've received, that was one particular detective. It was a SABC officer that actually acted outside of his oath that he has taken. And I have been very adamant in my discussions with the provincial commissioner and with the relevant district commissioner to ensure that each and every person responsible must be held accountable, to see that there is proper management and leadership at a station level, because it is highly unacceptable that in that matter, when there isn't checks and balances, or the checks and balances, Sakina, is actually in place. But we need proper management to actually make sure that it does not happen. And for that particular station, it's not even the first time that it has happened. And that is part of our reason when we call for devolution, when we say give provincial governments the executive authority of this police service and let us implement our policing needs and priorities. Let us listen to people like Lynn. Let us listen to people like our CPFs in other areas, so that our policing needs and priorities can be implemented. Current choices being made all the way in Pretoria, and we are currently, where I'm sitting, is 1,500 kilometers away from where policy decisions are making, are concluded. It is sifted down to our province. But we are definitely wanting to ensure from our side that each and every department, like I've indicated, plays a role, but also that we work continuously with the interventions that we have done. Sakina, this is the only province that has ultimately stepped in, and we have 1,300 LEAP officers, and Mitchells Plain, Delft, Khayelitsha, and there's 13 areas where we have deployed additional law enforcement officers to work alongside the South African Police Service. And that's a step up, because we have seen that budget had to be taken from other departments to ensure that we can actually step in. Hence, the call for better policing, for a more professional policing system, is what we have consistently called, because we see that it can be done, and policing has been done the same the same over and over since 1994, and we expect different results. Here in the Western Cape, we have a clear policy position in that regard, but we have also, in terms of our Cape safety plan, like I've indicated, no one will have a free pass, considering that there is various stakeholders, there's different spheres of government, and all needs to play a role.
And, you know, you and I, MEC Allen, have the luxury of speaking right now unaffected. There's a family that has lost a child, and this is an ongoing, a recurring story for so many families who have to live with this trauma in these most abject conditions on a daily basis. And I can imagine them listening to this conversation and thinking, excuses, excuses. How many times have we heard all of these things? Especially if you consider that something like the police's 10,111 number that we are told, the community says that has been out of service. It's been down for several days now in an area where we know life is at risk every minute of the day. Is that right, Mr. Allen? Why isn't that service operational?
Currently, in our constitutional framework, the South African Police Service is a national competence. It is run by national government. In the province, we have oversight. I'm always wanting to maintain that our oversight to better service delivery. It was last year in June already when I became aware that the current system is currently facing challenges. In that instance already, and via MEC, I've already in that particular forum deeply advocated for contingency plans, but also for the procurement of the new system to be implemented in the Western Cape as soon as possible. When it happened last day, and when parts of this lapsed, I again directly engaged the provincial commissioner because we have oversight and we must ensure that it leads to better service delivery. Sakina, the story that you have told, I'll never forget 2011. I'll never forget 2011 when I got a call that a cousin is laying in Pontyville and he has been shot. I'll never forget. So when I sit here, I firmly believe that we have a long way to go. But here in our province, we have seen pockets. We have seen where we have a murder rate when we compare it to Gauteng, to the Eastern Cape and to KZN. Those provinces are increasing in terms of their murder rate. Over the last 5 years, we saw a 1.4% reduction. It's a far cry from where we want to be, but it's a step in the right direction. This particular sad murder of a dose, it's heartbreaking considering that Lynn, there's other people that would have insights and that would have made submissions. And if you ask, the sepsis intervention, it's always very slow. So when we say that the executive authority we want policing powers to be devolved, provincial government, it ultimately means it's closer to the people so that we can ultimately look at the policing needs in a big area and make sure that there is deployment, make officers are actually professional, make sure that the systems are working, because it's a management matter whereby we are boarding more vehicles now than what we are getting into the South African Police Service. And I firmly believe in terms of management, in terms of managing a budget, for example, where you order the vehicles and it's simple the vehicles, you track it, you do it way in advance to ensure that you can actually ensure that all the procurement is done properly and that the vehicles can actually be on our road, can actually be serviced regularly. And that is what we are wanting to ensure is happening in the Western Cape. But currently, across our province, across our country, I've often heard the National Commissioner indicate that SABC is unable to fulfill its mandate. And I want to again indicate to prevent, is to combat, to investigate crime.
All right. We unfortunately have to leave it there, Mr. Reagan Allen. Apologies that Ms. Lynn Phillips couldn't join us. We couldn't get the connection right. But of course, hopefully we'll be able to have more opportunity to shine further light on this particular situation. But that was the Western Cape MEC of Police Oversight and Community Safety, Reagan Allen. And the gang situation, the gang violence, another victim, another innocent life, a 12-year-old girl killed in Beacon Valley in Mitchell's Plain. So this is an ongoing situation. Let us know your thoughts.